Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Road to Recovery podcast. This podcast is a platform for education, discussion, and conversations on mental health. I'm your host, Amira Shah, and in this podcast, you'll get to know more about the therapeutic process, insight into life from the perspective of the psyche, and also join me in exploring current issues with other practitioners. I specialize in grief, but I'm always interested in learning about the human experience of the mind, heart, and spirit. So join me on this journey of in-depth learning about ourselves and the world we live in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Science of the Soul. Today I have with me Scott Andrews. Scott is a traveling nurse and a Buddhist practitioner. My background with Scott goes towards our work together when we were both working in a humanitarian space. We worked with refugees once upon a time. I was a counselor and he was the nurse. What was it, Scott? What was your position?
The refugee health nurse. Yeah.
Refugee health nurse. And hi Scott, thank you for doing this podcast with me. It's been a long time. I haven't even seen you in over a year. And thank you so much for your time. You are in Western Australia now?
Correct. Yeah. It's awesome to see and hear you again after a very long time. There's something always very comforting and fulfilling about reconnecting with an old friend. And like the hallmark to that is always that you just pick up where you left off, even
That's
though a lot of
true.
time has elapsed. And we've just had a conversation prior to this starting, and it's great. It's so good to see and hear you again, and also to have that feeling of fulfillment from reconnecting with an old friend.
Well said. Well said. I was going to come up with warm and fuzzy, but well
It
said.
is. It's like a warm, fuzzy feeling. Yeah. You can smile and laugh. Yeah, and just all of those previous points of connection are still there. And it's great. It's like putting on a favorite piece of clothing, like putting on your favorite t-shirt or your favorite jumper or something like that. Yeah.
Just for the listeners, my experience of working with and just being around and being a friend of you, Scott, it's always, and I was thinking about this morning actually, it was always very calming. I'm always learning something about people, myself, or the world, but not in an instructive way, but more in a very implicit way, just through hanging out. It's like through osmosis, I become a better person and a better version of myself, or a version of myself that I like or prefer sometimes. And you know how people talk about, you should surround yourself with those that make you better. That is definitely something that came to my mind this morning, when I was anticipating this podcast, that being around you, aside from it being fun, warm, awesome, unpredictable, oh my god, unpredictable, it was it's always, it always leads towards some minute form of growth for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. it's like it's cool feedback to have, and it's like that feeling is actually mutual, because you've got this intense focus on internal development. So it's a nice reminder for me about my purpose and the meaning in my life. So I think that's sort of codependent, that the way we interact in that way is sort of like being on a seesaw. You sort of go down and then I come up, and our interactions and our conversations definitely hinge around a really common focus, even though we come at it from different angles and different directions. So it definitely feels very nurturing and helpful, and focusing when I'm with you.
Yeah, I can definitely say the same thing. And that focusing, I think, also comes from your sense of attention, like you pay attention. And this is the other thing that I remember. Working with you, I guess the when you have memories, they are filled with visuals and words and emotion, smells, things like that. And what really strikes me is just orbiting you. um for listeners, Scott is very tall. And often I feel like I'm orbiting him. And I'm not very short. I just feel like I'm orbiting him because he just seems so tall to me. But the sense that I get, the memories, is that you are not particularly stressed by time. Time seems to be a rubber band concept to you because of your attention. Like 5 minutes of your attention can feel like an hour because of the intensity and that focus. Um, so it just seems like it doesn't matter when Scott rocks up, because when he does, like you feel like he's there for a really long time. It's the effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's good. I had never thought about that before.
You make time slow down in a way when you give your attention.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe there's something to that. Make time slow down. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like timeless. Like a point of attention is timeless. When you're focused on something, time, it really does disappear. And if you take that into meditation, like making your focus of attention very subtle internal objects, it's really meaningless, like the concept of time, because it just vanishes altogether. But I hadn't realized that sort of came out in my behavior.
That's your vibe, yeah. And I think that's why, like, no one really minded if you rocked up to work late. It didn't feel like feels like you've been there forever.
I think that's probably arguable.
Oh well. The Scott effect. Time slows down. We should write a song.
A song about rocking up to work late?
No, just about how when you're around, time slows down, or people lose the concept of time. superpower. It's a meditative superpower. You've somehow translated that into your being, your manner, that seeps into other people's experiences of you or experience of themselves being around you. That's pretty cool.
Okay, the Pied Piper of time.
Okay, so enough about that. Can you tell us a little bit about you, about your choice to be a traveling nurse, actually, because that is quite different, and how this fits in with your practice, your Buddhist practice?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I came into nursing about 11 years ago. And what actually brought me to nursing was trying to get away from desk-driven roles and managerial and administrative-driven roles. So previously I was qualified as a welfare worker, and I moved through a lot of different areas of human services, but all those pathways, professional pathways, were kind of taking me into management and an office space and sitting behind a desk. And it's really not a environment in which I thrive. My productivity is not good. My sense of gratification from the work is not as high as when I'm interacting with other people. So I thought I'd add an extra set of skills, not to abandon the human service or the community development aspect, but to try and provide a point of focus for the future, like a vision for the future, where I could combine the physical work with like the community development or the humanitarian side of it. So yeah, and then I started nursing, and I really fell in love with it. Like, what I love about nursing is that you're physically active all day at work, but you're very highly mentally engaged, clinically engaged. But that there's this aspect of service to the work. It's like physical service. And so even though at the end of a shift you could be quite fatigued, quite exhausted actually, but there's this overriding sense of happiness and fulfillment and gratification that you've actually done something inherently good and worthwhile. So has been a really good fit for me, because I get that real sense of well-being from the work that I do. But I realized pretty early on in my nursing career that there was a lot of different places and a lot of different specialties to nurse in. And I started looking into ways that I could move around and travel throughout all those specialties and locations. And a lot of the nurses that I spoke to were quite limited in their perspective and their approach to nursing. They thought, I'm an orthopedic nurse, like that's what I specialize in. That's where I'm going to stay. I'm a pediatric nurse. That's where I'll stay. And I kind of didn't buy that. I thought that doesn't really make sense to me, because as nurses, we're not doctors, like we're not, consultants. We don't have to do these intense specializing pathways. And as I just moved around the hospital I was in at that point and moved between different floors, I realized that there's only to become really proficient and on top of your game as a nurse in a specialty, you really just have to brush up on the anatomy and physiology specific to that specialty and acquire probably a few more clinical competencies. So like there's a few more things that you need to get going, like in terms of hand-eye coordination and muscle memory and stuff. But once you've done that, it plateaus, and then you can really consolidate and really become efficient. And like that process for me, as I moved around, it's about 3 months. Like after 3 months in a specialty as a nurse, it's pretty much because of the volume of patients and the amount of work you get through in a shift. It consolidates, it sort of plateaus, and you're ready for anything when you come to work. So I thought, what about more like setting sail and sort of fearlessly embracing the unknown of location and specialty. And that's when I just transferred out of permanent roles and into contract nursing. And my approach to contract nursing has been to travel as widely as I can. So, yeah, I've sort of developed this sense of job security and therefore financial security in the fact that I'm ready to go anywhere, into any specialty in any location. And I have that approach that despite all the unknown of starting a new contract in a new location, I've got the skills to be able to deal with that. And the skills around that are actually just, they're a bit different to just being permanent in a particular place. So some of the skills are finding what you need in a new environment very quickly. So when you rock up for your first shift, literally anything can be going down. And often it is, you know, in terms of critical care or acute situations. So having this skill of being able to orientate yourself to a new clinical environment or a new hospital and find what you need very quickly. Yeah, that's a skill. Just being able to navigate, like local politics and staff issues, without getting pulled into them. Yeah, that's another skill that we have is like travel contractors. So yeah, overall though, it literally just requires this attitude of going, yeah, that's a bit of an unknown. It's natural to develop some anxiety about that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go straight towards that. And the more you do that, go straight towards the anxiety. Yeah,
And the
straight towards the
anxiety
anxiety.
stems from the unknown, not knowing.
Yeah, the anxiety is just irrational because it's just unknown. It's like, what if, you know? What if a tiny baby comes in and they're not breathing, and like, how am I going to deal with that in that situation when I don't know the workplace and I don't know where anything is? Like the mind can just proliferate on that endlessly, you know. But if you just go and do it, just experience it and like back yourself in, you know, go like, yeah, I've done this before. And I found everything and I dealt with the situation. So it's like that sense of, not really a sense of like bravado, but a sense of like not backing down, not running away from the fear, go towards the situation, and most effectively with a sense of love, with a sense of sort of boundless love for that situation, but for the fear itself too. You know,
Can you elaborate?
Well, in my practice, the one of the most beautiful qualities, one of the most beautiful experiences available to us as human beings is this ability to love unconditionally. And that sense of love is the most potent and the most effective at unlocking and letting go of fear, because it's what allows you to walk right up to it and see it for what it is.
Mm.
So any other approach, if you go, yeah, I'm a tough guy, like I can, I can do this, puff yourself up and walk up to something going, you can't beat me, I'll beat you. Like, there's still a barrier there when you're encountering it. And it's using a sense of will. And using a sense of will is really tiring to the mind. And it relies on a really strong sense of self or ego.
Yeah.
Whereas, that's a completely different direction to be taking. Whereas a sense of love, like true love, not a transactional form of attachment, but like a boundless sense of love, meaning that you can look at anyone or anything or any experience with the feeling that that thing, that experience, that person is your child, and that without knowing everything about it or what it could possibly do to you, that you love it unconditionally. That's what is the precursor to understanding that thing or the experience or that person fully. So, yeah, so that for me is the most effective mechanism to letting go of fear, i.e., understanding what the fear is, like generating true insight into what the fear is. Yeah, it's this ability to walk straight up to it and put your arms around it and love it unconditionally, because it's what you're experiencing now. It's part of your present moment.
Does this
Like
work
there's no
with...
other, like to me, there's no higher meaning in life than to do that, because if you do that sincerely, authentically, you're all the distraction and all the clutter and all the miscellaneous debris of life is just swept to the side, and you're embracing the present moment. You're embracing what you're experiencing in the present moment without any filter. Yeah, you're having it. If you're anyone that's looking for truth the way I am, then there's literally nothing more important than that.
I have a question. And as you're speaking, I guess I'm a visual person, so my understanding is often visually imagined. And what I imagine is fear as an object or an entity, and then your conscious self or your mind or your thoughts of love, filling yourself up with that, and then going over and hugging it. That's what I imagine. But how do you build that bridge of love towards the person or the experience or whatever it is that we're trying to understand or not
Mm.
overcome, but
Mm.
yeah, I guess understand.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fairly rigorous investigation and as a byproduct, development of mindfulness about your intention, about intention. Hang on, I'm just going to run out of battery. Hang on.
Sure.
So being aware, like becoming more aware, more aware, more aware of your of intentions. So what
Mm-hmm.
is my motivation? What is my intention? What is my motivation? What is my attention?
Mm-hmm.
Developing a really strong sense of mindfulness around what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's what builds the bridge. Okay, because
Okay.
uh, it's not just when I'm talking about love, it's not just a concept, you know, it's not just a sense of a few words or a mantra that you're repeating to yourself. It's like 1,000%, you know, the whole of your being, what you take yourself to be, you know, your consciousness and manifesting physically as a feeling, the undeniable sense that you do love completely the object of your awareness. Yeah.
Do you do that
So
through thought, through imagery, through questioning? I guess that's yeah, I guess I'm trying to ask you in a more practical fashion in order
yeah,
to imagine
yeah,
doing it myself.
sure. Yeah, I think like getting a sense of the potency of that is really important because otherwise it ends up just as, you know, an esoteric exercise, you know, or something that's academic,
Yeah.
and it's completely not. It's a feeling, you know, it's an attitude, it's a perception. So if you know, that's where experience really is key. So having that experience of what happens when you do love something or someone completely. And when I'm saying completely, like there's no transaction, there's no attachment
Mm.
that's involved with that feeling. It's like the door of my heart is open to you, no matter where you go, no matter what you do in the past, the present, the future. You know, there's no filter, there's no barrier to you accessing this love. There's no
Mm.
comebacks. There's not going to be any regret. This is a pure, this is a pure feeling. So basically, if you can have that experience of that feeling towards something like a fear, and then see the effect of it
Mm-hmm.
and understand the way that happened internally, then that's where you start to develop the muscle to be able to repeat it and do it over again and apply it, you know, to
Mm.
different situations. You know, we were talking before this started about going, what am I afraid of? Like actually starting to look for it. What am I afraid of?
Mm.
Ah, that's what I need to love.
Okay.
I need to love that thing, you know, like it's my tiny, 2-year-old child,
Yeah.
my 1-year-old child, my newborn baby, something that's completely helpless, that needs my unconditional care and affection, that needs me to protect it from the world. So then, of course, it's your baby. You're going to go over there, you're going to hold it in your arms, and you're going to stop it from being hurt. And then, yeah, that's when you make the breakthroughs, because then you realize that the fear that you had was completely irrational, and more than that, it's completely disappeared, because the thing that you feared is this helpless little baby in your arms. So how can you be afraid of that?
Yeah.
It's your child.
Yeah. It's so interesting now that that you kept talking.
Mm,
To me, what you just said, when you explained the newborn baby, the concept of using the newborn baby as a way to relate to that fearful part. But that's the thing. I guess that's how I'm trying to relate to what you're saying, from my trainings and my understanding of the mind and the sticky. And we call that, and maybe I'm wrong, barking up the wrong tree, but we call that parts work. Or someone called this sort of work also in internal family systems. But essentially we're built of, there are we are a sum of different parts, but maybe we're not. But we have these parts within us that might be stuck at a certain time, a certain age, and kind of like fractured away from our like wise self, and our current age and mind, which is why when we experience a certain, when we're being triggered and we experience certain emotional reactions that we know on one part of our mind that we just, it does not make sense, but yet that emotional part still needs to be heard, needs to be seen, needs that comforting, and it just doesn't make sense why everything that you understand, everything about it, but you still can't soothe it. And I guess when you talk about, a newborn baby, it makes me think of parts work or internal family systems, which is essentially something quite similar, where we talk to these parts and we approach them with wisdom and with love, and we allow them to say what they need to say, and we release them from the time that they're stuck in, whether it's a baby or a 2-year-old or a 20-year-old, from when that time, that part fractured off from our whole being self. And by doing that, we kind of dissolve that part and reintegrate it into our whole self, our whole wise adult self. Don't know if that makes sense, to what, relating to what you're saying. But in parts work, we always talk to our parts with love, and we want to hear from those parts. We allow them a chance to speak and to express themselves, and then we love them back. We embrace them into our whole self.
Yeah, I think the accepting, the letting go happens when that sincere acceptance and sense of contentment is there. So being content with the way you are, being content with your past conditioning,
Mm.
accepting everything that has come before,
Yeah.
that's brought you to this moment, and loving it
Yeah.
unconditionally because it has conditioned this moment. Yeah, it sounds like the same thing to me.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's starting
So
to brighten up this fuzzy image in my mind initially.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
um, mm,
And I have another question now. With being mindful about intention and
mm,
being more aware of your intentions and your motivations and projecting love, or not projecting, but utilizing love or having love arise within you, um, is that more energy consumption or less energy consumption than basing something with ego, and why not? Oh,
yeah.
before you answer that,
Mm.
um, I'm not sure if listeners are able to hear. There's a bit of a background noise. Um, can you hear noise on
I
your
can hear.
phone
Oh,
from my side?
mm, no, I can't hear any noise.
Okay, that's only on my side then. Um,
Hmm.
I believe the TV is on or something like that. Um, So excuse the background noise, but everyone's happy doing their own thing. So if it's not bothering anybody, should be okay. Now I left off with a question. Yes, love versus ego. What uses more
Mm,
energy? You said that,
yeah,
with ego you use more
yeah,
energy.
yeah, yeah. So using, like, so coming back, we sort of, I made a sort of polarity earlier about approaching a fear or approaching an anxiety with a sense of bravado, and using the will, using the sense of will and ego to overcome it. Yes, it definitely uses a lot of energy. It's very exhausting. Um,
Mm. Why is
and
that?
there might be a sense, um,
Sorry to
why
interrupt.
is that? Because the will requires this belief in the self and a belief in the ego. And it needs to be, it's like a ravenous creature, like it constantly needs to be fed and maintained.
That's
Um,
true. Oh my
yeah,
God.
it does. It's like trying to build like an actual muscle, like
Empire.
trying to generate muscle mass, like you need to be
Mm.
constantly feeding it
Yeah,
the right stuff. Um, and
so true.
um, it's also like there's an element of force which goes with it. You're forcing yourself to overcome the fear or the anxiety. You're forcing that fear and anxiety to not exist. And the problem with that, when you're dealing with fear, is that sometimes it backfires, with that sense of will, that sense of force. Sometimes it just fights back and it gets bigger.
Mm.
Whereas if you can empower yourself with the ability to feel love
Mm-hmm.
towards literally anything that you're experiencing, that doesn't consume any energy at all. In fact, it actually generates energy that you can go face to face with any fear, anything you fear or are anxious about for hours or days at a time, and just generate more and more energy.
Mm. Can you give me an example? I understand it, but just for, for the sake of something practical to relate to. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Science of the Soul. This is a short interruption to let you know that if you or someone you know are in need of more support, you can find me at Road to Recovery on my Facebook page, my Instagram, or my website at aroadtorecovery.org. I hope you've enjoyed listening so far, and now let's get back to the podcast.
So just carrying on where we left off, we were talking about the difference between facing fear using a sense of will or ego versus facing fear with a sense of love and embracing it in a pure, unconditional way, and exploring the idea of engaging the intellect, and whether that is also activating the sense of will or ego, and or whether that can be done through love. And I think it definitely can. I think there's a general reaction, like we're trained through a justice paradigm, through the educational systems that we grow up with, to engage. The ego is very much attached to the sense of intellect. But I feel like we can access the wisdom built through the intellect with love, with a sense of already letting go, and just letting that knowledge come to the fore, trusting the mind, trusting the empty processes that allow us to access knowledge, trusting that that will come to the fore at the right moment and be of use in the right moment. I don't think accessing intellect or learning always has to be a sense of will or ego, but I think that we're just trained to engage with it in that way, to engage with the process of learning by activating the sense of self. It's very different. It's a very different machination to what I'm talking about with a pure, unbounded sense of love. And I don't have an academic background in any of this. Basically, my point of view, my perspective is just from spending very long periods of time in nature watching my own mind. So I'm really just trying to give words to a feeling or an observation of something that's worked for me, So, in sort of spiritual lingo, like those aha moments, those breakthrough moments when you realize, oh, this led to that. So this is just the way I put it, that I find that if I look for fear, if I look for anxiety, and then go towards it with a pure sense of love, that leads to insight, that leads to letting go, and that's how I grow. So that's just me putting words to something that I've experienced, something that I've found that works for me, in terms of understanding consciousness and making sense of existence. So to bring it all back to the original question about what takes more energy, it's like, yeah, this doing that with a pure sense of love over and over again, it doesn't use any energy. It just provides energy. It's the antithesis to the normal paradigm that we have with regards to effort, achievement, and exhaustion. Like, it doesn't work that way with love. It's you far surpass any kind of realm that you would think about sort of achieving or gaining or winning. You far surpass anything of that sort with love, and you end up with more energy than you could possibly imagine. Like, it's almost like, can I take any more? Like, it's too much energy, and of course you can always take more love. Like, you can, so you start reaching these limitless states, of, is there anything more blissful? Is there anything, more powerful than this? And there is, So, yeah, completely different direction than using the ego or using the will.
Yeah. And it's exercising that choice repeatedly to step away from engaging with the ego using will, and instead reverting to using love, wherever we feel like this is something I need to confront or conquer, and then instead approach it with love, and then that itself generates its own energy. But I sometimes, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but please correct me. I sometimes wonder if just getting to the point of giving rise to the love or exercising the love itself, some cognitive processes need to occur. There are some things that we need to unlearn because our pattern has been otherwise. And within that and developing insight, we ask ourselves, what is this about, right? In order to learn more about it. And when we do quite a bit of that, there is a level of mental exhaustion.
Yeah.
So is that something that's quite temporary, or is that something that gets easier to sustain rather than always exercising the ego, the energy from the ego, where over time you've built the muscle, you kind of know how to navigate using love as a tool, and embodying it, to get through or understand challenges or fears. Does that just get easier with time because it's practice?
Yeah, it's cause and effect, and there is an element of knowing the territory, but life isn't like that. I mean, it does become a way of life, understanding that taking it up as a purpose for living, like that's a major kind of breakthrough. So it means that you're actually looking, you're consciously looking for that experience and that opportunity, to generate love. But you don't wake up like that in the morning, that I mean, yeah, sometimes that sense of love is there first thing in the morning, but often it's not, you know. Often the mind is at a really base level first thing in the morning. Easy to, fall into thoughts of irritation, lust, sadness. You're very I'm very susceptible first thing in the morning. I'm sharper after a cup of a cold shower and a cup of coffee. Then I have more sway over the direction that my mind goes. But not first thing. So, and then, there's the conditioning of the day, like, what are you exposed to, throughout the day? It's once again, what I'm referring to is a contemplative process, where you do have the time and space to influence, the direction that the mind's going. But if you don't get that chance and you're overwhelmed by other forces and other factors, busyness, stress, people, whatever it is, traffic, animals, crowds. If that practice isn't really, really strong, then there may be a significant amount of time before you can return to that contemplation, to influencing your mind in that direction. So it is. There's an aspect of knowing the territory, and then remembering that's the direction that you want to go. And then actually creating the conditions for it to happen. So it's not like, I'm not talking about an idea or something that you can just say and make it happen. I'm talking about, if you imagine the mind like a tree, and you want the tree to lean in a particular direction. Well, you need like consistent force for that to occur. You need the wind to blow from this direction, say from right to left, you need it to blow in that direction consistently for the tree to lean that way, or you need the mountain that it's growing on to sort of be angling it that way, or whatever the case may be. You'll need some consistent force for that tree to lean that way. And so that's the way it is with the mind. Like, there needs to be consistent awareness of that. Like I was saying earlier, the experience is really the key. If you have that experience, then that's when you get a very clear, deep insight. That's a really meaningful thing. Like, that's how I want to live my life. That is, foremost in my experiences, that has real purpose to it. So like, which is quite different to just say listening to a podcast or, reading something in a book. Like, if you experience something internally for yourself and understand the cause and effect nature of that, well, it's like, oh, wow, like that's something I want to keep doing, like that has got meaning to me.
With an experiential learning, it's it's hard to shake off, and it's hard to forget. It
Mm.
has more of a recency effect, a longer recency effect for us to
Yeah.
kind of sit down and go like, I really need to do something about this. But even before we get to that point of wanting to make a decision and make choices to create
Mm.
opportunities or environments or circumstances for, our mind to lean towards that way, as the tree
Mm.
analogy just now, it's trusting yourself. I think that that experience you've had is one that is profound and is a lesson for you to learn from and to take forth. Um,
Mm.
so being able to trust the self, I guess, that it's going in that direction. And the reason why I'm thinking of this is, with my background, my faith
Mhm.
background, being raised
Mm.
Muslim, um, and being around the people who, like my family members, my aunties, who were from time to time, more often than not, they would feel doubt about
Mm.
whether they should trust a feeling or a process or an experience. And that doubt
Mm.
can only be resolved or soothed by referring to dogma or speaking to an
Mm.
elder or a clergy or something, someone of that, religious authority.
Mm.
And a lot of the time, even though I was very young at that time, I was probably like a kid or a teenager, I just could not understand why they couldn't just go with it. Just go with it, just trust it. But there was a lot of
Mm.
fear and doubt around their own spiritual experiences, and fear
Mm.
from straying, and fear that they've got the wrong message, or that something has gone wrong somewhere. So they needed a guru or something to refer to as a reference or a book. And I can understand the value of that, but I
Mm.
feel that that mistrusting of the self, or I guess moving away from intuition, it's kind of like the opposite of what we're going for in spiritual development. Um,
Mm.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's like the difference if you go to a restaurant, right? Like the difference between the menu and the food.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I know you love making food and eating great food. So I know that your palate is incredible and your ability to make good food is widely known, but I've never seen you eat a menu. I've never seen you offer a menu to someone and ask them to eat it, you know? And it's the same when you go to a restaurant. Like they come out, you sit at your table, the waitress comes out, or the waiter comes out and gives you a menu.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't start eating the menu. We order we order the food, and then we eat the food, and the food gives us, it gives us this whole experience.
Yeah.
We get the taste, we get the smell, the flavor, we get the feeling in our body, and whatever other effects come from gastronomic delights. Uh, but the food also satisfies us. It stops us from feeling hungry, and it
Mm-hmm.
gives us nutrition in the body. But the menu doesn't do that.
No, it
The
gives you a
menu's
glimpse of it.
just paper. Yeah, it's going to cause problems when we eat
It gives you expectations. That's what it does.
it. It does, yeah. So, like, um, I think maybe in some instances, some dogma, like maybe it could be useful.
Mm,
Like, I guess it depends where the dogma is coming from, like who wrote the
mm,
book, who's giving the teaching.
mm.
It could be useful as a signpost,
Yeah.
you know, like as a direction finder, like as a navigation tool, you know,
Mm,
because you walk
mm,
into a restaurant, like you kind of don't know where the good food is or like what the dishes are called, but the
mm.
menu actually gives you that. It's kind of like, oh yeah, go over here, like you want some
Mm.
protein, like it's on this page, like order
Yeah.
that, you know, like that's the thing, the menu is not the food. So like, yeah, perhaps like the dogma and the teacher, yeah, they can be useful as signposts, they can be useful as menus, you know, but the real food is the experience, because
But how
that's
do you
what's going to give you the satisfaction. Yeah.
how do you trust that the experience you're having is the experience
Yeah,
and
good
not doubt
question.
that?
Yeah, I like that. It comes really back to what we started with right at the beginning when we're talking about intention and motivation. So what are you doing and why?
Mm,
um, so for me, like looking for meaning in existence, you know, I quickly realized that I was looking for peace and calm and wisdom, you know. And then when I get little tastes of that, it's like, ah, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And so identifying that really, that it really cultures and cultivates your intention and your motivation, you know.
yeah.
So even you, though you might wake up blurry in the morning, it's kind of like, yeah, I still know what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that when you experience it, it's like, ah, that's it. That's
Mm,
okay. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
So
looking
that
for
that
that
rings
feeling of
true
letting
for you
go.
stuff.
Yeah. So like all of this doesn't happen in a nutshell. Um, and in terms of navigating menus, you
Mm,
know, or navigating teachers, it really helps, you know,
mm,
because if you're looking for a steak, you know, you don't go to a vegetarian restaurant, right?
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so you need to go to a steakhouse, and then you'll see that on the menu. Um, so, and that's the thing. There's a lot of restaurants out there with a lot of different menus, and so
Yeah.
there's a lot of teachers out there with a lot of different teachings. Um, um, so, yeah, having a clear sense of what you're looking for, yeah, it's kind of important.
Yeah. So that's your guiding spirit or your guiding light, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And the
Well,
more
that's
you taste it,
beautiful.
the more you get familiar with it, and the more you know how to find it.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it's like when you find a good restaurant. I'm staying with the metaphor.
Yeah.
Like you know how to get there, right? You know where it is. You know who works there. You know what food they serve.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
keep going back. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Well, that's a beautiful kind of circle that we've gone around today in our
yeah.
conversation. And as we speak, I tend to doodle. I'm a doodler.
Mm,
And whatever
I
words
know.
that that I'll show you my doodle. Whatever words that come up, I just start like writing it, mindlessly, intentionlessly, if that's even a word. And then I start drawing around it. And then how I realized we've kind of gone full circle is through my doodles and the words I've
Okay.
scribbled. So thank you
Mm,
very much for your time, for your wisdom,
mm,
and for catching up with me as well. Like
mm.
it's been great. Missed I've missed our conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's been really helpful for me. It's a really timely reminder and charging point for me. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, I'm glad. I'm
Thank
glad.
you. Yeah.
So I guess we'll sign off here for today. Thank
Yep.
you for tuning in. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time and your wise words. And I look forward to the next time we speak again.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.